Okay, so before I sort of begin my own presentation on what it means to be able to thrive with reference to our human health, I also wanted to handle that other question on thriving to say that if you're able to if the only time it's not possible to be able to sort of have a balanced approach to work and life is when you are reassessing this position on a daily basis. I think that's one problem that I see a lot of people that I work with do. It's like anything else in life, right? It's you've got to sort of assess whether you're able to balance work and health, or work and life over a period of time on a day-to-day basis. I think we're setting ourselves up for failure if we evaluate our performance on a daily basis. It's like anything else, right? If you're in a relationship with someone, you can't assess it every day. There are good days and there are bad days. But over time, if you look at it over a 1 year period or 5 year period or a 10-year period, that's when you have a clear view of it, because you're able to sort of sit up and have a bird's eye view on how you did and how you performed. So today we're going to talk about this about the area of thriving. And I think the first thing I'd like to start with is that when we talk of health, I always remind people that there is a heal in the word health. And I think a lot of times we forget, the word HEAL. The word heal is our capacity for regeneration, for restoration and repair. This is the superpower that enables our health. And as we go through life, because as we go through life, there is going to be wear and tear, there is going to be stresses, and there is going to be trauma. You cannot take those away. But what we can do is we can strengthen our ability to be able to bounce back. And this bounceability, as I call it, is what I call thriving and what I call health. Now, the argument that I'm going to make today is that when you're in a thriving state of health, your bounceability is heightened to a max.
Rittu, are you changing the slides, or we're on the same slide? Just out of curiosity.
Same slide. We are on the same slide.
Okay, cool. I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah. So the ability to be able to, your bounceability is basically influenced by two things: your mindset and your ability to expand, to adopt an expansive view of health. Now, one of the things that that's happened in the last 10 years since health and wellness got marketed to us is that I think we are being it's got us to a point where health has become simplified and reductive. And I think what it does is that it gets us sweating the small stuff. It gets, when we think about our own health, I think we sort of get stuck in the weeds about things. And I think the way to get out of that is to be able to sort of look at your health in a bigger picture, and I call it magnifying your health, which is also my tagline, which basically means that take a lens to your health and blow up the big picture of health so that you're able to look at the small things, appreciate the interconnections of how health comes together, because health is complex and multidimensional and personalized and interconnected and dynamic. And asking ourselves questions of saying, is my work life okay? Or am I eating right? Or am I exercising? How much should I exercise? What is good for me? What is bad for me? I think that's what causes us to get stuck in the weeds. Now, this is where the scorecard comes in, because the scorecard is able to give you a 360 view of health. It's this expansive view of health, which sort of helps you appreciate all that is possible in the area of health beyond just the the shape, size, sleep that we generally focus on. Now, social media does it, and I understand, social media, what sells is when you make something really reductive and simplify it to be able to sort of have a compelling soundbite out of it. Now, a health scorecard also helps you. When I say a health scorecard, some people call it a Thrive scorecard, and others could also call it a flourishing scorecard, but it means basically the same thing. Another thing that the health scorecard does is, makes you aware of your levers, which are at your disposal at any time, and to look at the small details and see how you create that big picture of health. The one, the framework that I normally work with is the health belief model, which basically says that if I had to gauge how likely you are, or the possibility of a person engaging in health behaviors, I don't have to look at what they're eating and drinking and how they're sleeping. I need to be able to understand their mindset, which basically is made up of things like your perceived susceptibility to health issues, or your perceived severity of how bad things can get if you didn't take care of your health, or the perceived barriers in your mind, the perceived benefits that you see, your other cues of action. And finally, of course, it is about your ability to be able to your ability to be able to believe in the fact that you will be able to get through this, and you will be able to take action in the area of health. And this is something that we in our line call self-efficacy, and that's a really good determinant of how well you are able to manage your health. Moving on to the next slide, one of the things I wanted to sort of mention here was that when you begin to get health, when health is a cumulative of the little choices that we make, right? And it's all about the focus has to be on more of what we do in a day, on a daily basis, rather than what we do once a week or once a month. Now, if I look at the dimensions of health, Kate, can we go back to the previous slide, please? I think, yeah. So if you look at the dimensions of health, I want to point out one thing, that we all like to think of our health as really unique to us, right? We think, this doesn't suit me, or this doesn't work for me. But if I look at health, and I want to point this out, and this is one realization that I've come to, having worked in this area for long, is the fact that we are genetically 99.9% similar, right? As human beings, all human beings, right? We also have the same 6 universal emotions of sort of happy, angry, sad, surprise, fear, and disgust, which, and our emotional state is a great determinant of our health, has a massive impact on it. We also have, as human beings, we also have similar health concerns, which are basically around things like chronic diseases or aging or mental health. We also have the shared behavioral risk, which means that, our risks of what is going to cause us to be healthy are similar. It's on addictions. It used to traditionally be smoking, alcohol, then came drugs. And now I think a lot of people find that they are addictive personalities. So you could get addicted to anything. It's about keeping that balance in your life and keeping yourself, making sure that nothing that you're using as a crutch. Then the other shared behavioral risk is, of course, unhealthy diet, physical inactivity, and I think poor sleep. We also have the same psychological response to chronic stress. The release, all of us, when we are stressed, release cortisol, which is a stress hormone. And I think that causes the same kind of reaction in every human being, which is anxiety, depression, fatigue, sleep problems, and of course, difficulty in concentration. So if I look at the last point that I want to make in terms of our similarity is that all our health exists in these 6 dimensions, which is your physical, mental, emotional, environmental, existential, and spiritual. And these are interconnected. For example, if I look at existential and spiritual, some people, they deepen their spirituality, or their spirituality actually leads them to be able to explore questions of meaning and purpose, which is existential questions. While for other people, exploring those existential questions might deepen their spirituality. So these are all interconnected. You all know that emotional health and mental health is also very, very interconnected. Now, when we come to the area of Thrive, I'm setting a background to be able to talk about Thrive, because Thrive, when you're in the state of Thrive, you have to be able to look at all these aspects of your health all together. You cannot go by one because of the fact that they're all interlined and they all play on each other. Moving on, if I look at the challenges to sort of our health today, there are sort of, in spite of the fact that there's so much of data floating around, right? We all know more about health and healthier and than we did a long time ago. But in spite of that, in spite of the fact that there is enough statistics talking about how human health has deteriorated in the last 10 years, we're all aware of it, and I could share pages of data there. But in spite of that, I think the one challenge that we all face in the area of health is understanding the fact that merely knowing is just not enough. Merely knowing is not equal to doing. And the problem that we all face is in the area of executing on our health on a daily basis. There are 3 things that I want to talk about when I talk about execution, and that's sort of mindset and ability and willingness. So our mindset, of course, is our beliefs and attitudes. And the important thing here is that mindset is like an organizational culture, right? You have to intentionally choose a mindset. We, through our lives, from the time that we are children, I think there is experiences we are exposed to that create a mindset. But as we get older, I think it's very important to consciously choose your mindset, and the mindset has to be able to enable you on this health journey. It's also important in today's world, especially when health data is being produced at such a fast rate, right? Today, I came across a statistic which says that in 1980, health and medical knowledge was doubling every 7 years. And in 2020, it was, in 2010, it was doubling every 3.5 years. And come to 2020, which is just about 2 years back, I couldn't believe it when I heard it, but your health, information on health is doubling every 0.2 years. 0.2 years equates to like 73 days. So this accelerated pace of change of data also means that we have to constantly rethink our perspectives and our mindsets about what works and what doesn't, because the information is moving so fast. And we all know that rethinking is a habit that serves us really well in this journey. The other one that the challenge that people face is health skills. I don't think we're ever taught it. Most of us pick it up or build it up over time, but there are definitely skills that contribute and aid you to be able to take care of your health. Now, this is a list of skills, and this is my framework that I put together. It's based off a WHO paper that I read long back. But basically, these skills are like life skills, but the emphasis is on self. For example, just to be able to explain one. So, for example, if I look at self-awareness, if I look at it as a life skill, it's about the ability to be able to know how people look at you. But when I talk of it as a health skills, it's your ability to know yourself. The question you would ask would be different. When you look at self-awareness, it's how well do you know yourself? Because you only have yourself on this journey of health. And if you are able to be aware of your limitations, your preferences, your strengths, your weaknesses, then you're able to apply that knowledge for better health outcomes. Finally, also, I think when it comes to ability, I always like to think of I always tell clients to say, think of yourself as a project manager, and your health is the project that you're looking at. So if I divide a person into, say, the self and the mind and the body and the body are those errant team members which are constantly, taking you astray, right? The mind is fickle and the body wants what it wants, the senses and the emotions, right? So therefore, the only one who keeps you track is that self. And if you do that project manager role, you're able to handle this part of life better, because your role is constantly to keep the individual on track on their health journey. In terms of willingness, I like to talk about the fact that when we get to health, we all have a vision about our career, and you're going to hear a lot of that from Richa about our vision. We have goals for our careers. We have actions for our careers. In the area of health, I think we miss out on that. We miss out on doing that for ourselves, because often I think we set up work, health, life as competing priorities. Unfortunately, the fact of the matter is that there is one life and all of this needs to get done. So what helps in the journey of health is having a very compelling vision, and the goals that we set out for ourselves. So they all have to be SMART goals. But I think what's important is that when we chart out our own Thrive scorecard or a health scorecard, it's got to make sense and meaning to you. It's got to have value to you, because if it doesn't hold value, it's going to fall by the wayside. So we cannot want to be healthy just because the world says we've got to be healthier. If the world is saying drink more water, unless you sort of change your own narrative and feed that narrative, because sometimes things don't have value for us, but then you've got to sort of change that mindset to be able to attach value to what you're doing. Because when you attach value to it, you're able to look at the benefits of it, and you're able to see how it impacts you directly. It just makes it come alive. So visions, goals, and actions are really important. Can I take I feel like I'm speaking to a wall
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. I was going to say to you, you might want
Yeah,
to, kind of
correct.
have everyone ask questions, but I do want to, jump in here and say to you, I love you saying, consider your health like a project. And I think what that does is it really brings a whole different frame to it, because I think a lot of times we don't really do that. And hold on, Rittu, I was sitting here cheerleading as you were doing all your skills. I was like, those are all Gleek skills.
Yes, they are. It's just that, when you apply them to your health, they just have to be applied differently. Because one of the things that I always like to mention to people is one of the things that, which is the challenges to health today is what we in my business call that, the world has become obesogenic, which basically means that somehow the world is conspiring to make you unhealthy, whether it's how our work is expanded, whether it's about how much needs to be done, whether it's about access to food, access to convenience foods, the fact that technology is enabling so much of comfort and convenience in our lives that it's actually sort of dissuades you from moving your body that much. So it's led all of us to have very sedentary lives, right? And that's something we have to be cognizant about. So unless we put our health in the center and then plan our life around it, it can be done like that as well. Most people put work in the center and then plan your life around it. I have always, had one calendar for work and life and health. And I find that's a good way to be able to make you move forward, to be able to give equal importance to everything.
I like that, work, life, and health. So I'm going to ask the question to you, to everyone. Let's do a quick poll to everyone in the chat. How healthy in a from 1 to 10, based on Ritu's explanation of the elements of health. And was that the slide before, Rittu?
Yes.
Yes. Can we go back to that slide before? Okay. Why don't you, on each one of these elements from 1 to 10, with 10 being I'm very healthy, why don't you give Rittu a gauge of where are you right now on those elements? I think that might be very helpful insight for you, Rittu.
I think so. Yeah.
Before you continue on with the presentation. So in chat, everyone, if you can take these elements, these 6: physical, mental, emotional, environmental. Can you define existential for us, Rittu, for everyone?
Existential is more, health relates to your questions of purpose and meaning in life. The questions that you ask yourself that answer, why do I exist? Why am I here? What is my purpose in life?
Okay, so physical first, where are you from 1 to 10, everybody? Physical, I have 3 out of 10. Let's start there. Physical, I think I'm at a 6. But hold on some days I'm not. I'm a 6. Physical, Ruth goes 3. Samir 2. Physical. All right, let's talk about spiritual. Where are we, everyone, on our spiritual health? I would say I'm at a 5. 4, Devish is at a 4. Where are we? Spiritual 8, 10, physical 5, 7, physical 2, spiritual 8, spiritual 4. Okay, now it's the big one. We're going to do this one and then we'll have to existential, purpose, meaning in your life. Where are you, everyone, on this? Purpose and meaning. Devish, you're at a 0?
That's funny.
5, 6, 5, purpose. Wow. I love the fact that you've made us look at health in this way, Rittu. And I love the fact that you talked, I think Laura was asking about work-life balance. Now we have work-life health balance, right?
Health balance, correct.
Yeah,
correct.
We have the 3 elements. I love that. All right, keep going. Good stuff. Keep going.
So when I sort of look at, can I have the next slide on, please? So what I'd like to take you to is the fact that, when we look at health, these are the levels of health. Now, this is my framework. This is my description. This is, and it's based off commonly used the terminology and descriptions in my area of work. What I want to point out is if we are able to look at health as 4 levels: foundational health, which is also called functional in some cases, enhanced, optimum, and thriving health, right? Thriving health is what today's topic is about, but I can't get you there before I cover the others. So I want to point out that these different states of health are not necessarily linear or sequential, right? You can move between these phases at different times of your life, but bearing in mind that thriving health is where we want to be most of the time. These health behaviors that we sort of show in each of these areas are also not mutually exclusive. Most people show a combination of behaviors, and this is a theoretical framework because just to point out to you, what would constitute optimal health for person A that is not the same for person B. What is optimal health for, say, an athlete is going to be different than what it is for a young parent or for a person with a chronic illness, right? So therefore, it's very important that we personalize this to be able to ask ourselves the question, because universally, sorry, can we have the slide move to the next slide, please? That's right. So these 4 levels. This is a theoretical network, which sort of basically is supposed to give you a understanding of health to be able to guide your efforts towards getting healthier. Because it's not about being the healthiest version of yourself. It's about getting healthier day to day and looking at this entire journey as a journey to be able to say, how am I better today than I was yesterday? So the idea of these 4 levels is basically is a guide towards the possibilities of health. So just to sort of be brief, and then I'm going to take questions after each slide. Maybe, if some people have questions, it might be easier for us to go about it that way. If you look at functional health or foundational health, it's basically about your physical health and your mental health. Pretty basic. It just basically means absence of disease. And the measures that you use are very, very simplistic. Things like blood pressure, weight, calories burned. Enhanced health, again, focused on the self, but here it's about those functional health measures, which is physical and mental, but we also add in emotional health, right? So feelings of happy or satisfied or fulfilled become important. As we go to optional health, if I go to look at optional health, it's sort of broader sense of the world, because the other aspects of health, which is sort of the spiritual, existential environment, come into play. So here, it's not about that one workout we do. That entire workout becomes movement in our life, right? Because these aspects, you could move in a multitude of ways. Sorry, yes?
No, we were losing you. We didn't hear you for like 2 seconds.
Is that better?
Yeah, way better. Thanks.
So when we are at optimal health, exercise turns into movement. Eating healthy turns into balanced nutrition, because it's not about what is good or bad, because good and bad, we all know, are labels that we put. It's about what do we eat more of and what do we eat less of. But you should be able to eat everything, because there's a time and place for everything, right? When people look at stress reduction at optimum, if you're functioning at an optimum level of health, it actually turns into mindfulness and meditation, or for some people, it's therapy. So the focus here is on holistic health. And I think there's a recognition when you're optimal health, saying your health is not in isolation. There is self and there is others, because people around you, your surroundings, also influence how you're feeling. Now, coming down to thrive, now that's our basic topic. And the thrive to me refers to a state of being, but it's an active state of being, but it's not a state of doing. So if I can count functional, enhanced, and optimal levels as a state of doing things, thriving is a state of being, because it's about the way you look at things. It's about the perspective that you adopt to look at your whole life, right? In all the 6 dimensions that we spoke about. Because when you are thriving, and you could, as I said, move between thriving. Today I'm thriving and tomorrow I'm in, say, optimal level. That's possible because, life has its stressors and there are days that, set us back. Now, when you're thriving, you can actually compensate for functional deterioration, because you are a person who has then developed coping mechanisms which work wonderfully. And I say that because I've had an autoimmune condition. I was diagnosed in 20, and I've seen when I was 20 years old, and managing it day-to-day basis, but it doesn't stop you from reaching the level of thriving at some points in your life. I think this level is where growth mindset becomes important. It's about keeping yourself open. It's about high curiosity, high learning. It's about constantly challenging yourself. Things like concepts like acceptance, appreciation of, the challenges that you've had so far, to be able to see them as, chances that made you grow. That's important. Creativity is important. Fulfillment is important. And I think the most important part is the fact that when you're in a thrive mode, you are actually engaged in self-improvement and personal growth. You are gauging yourself on a day-to-day basis to be able to say, what am I doing today to be better than what I was yesterday? Because there's a realization that your health is so intricate to performance and potential in your life. So you prioritize self-health care. The emphasis is on value creation. When you're at functional level, it's more about value gained, right? Am I looking nice? But I think here it becomes value creation. And as I said, and I reiterate that, this is my framework. This is the way I look at health. And there could be people who look at it differently, because this level of thriving is where you're contributing to the well-being of others. Activism, volunteerism are important things. And as I said again, I want to remind you all that all of us, for all of us to be here.
Yes, please go ahead, Rittu.
It's possible for all of us to be at thriving, but it requires an intentionality and a consciousness on ourselves to be able to spend more time in this state.
I have a question for you, Rittu. Is this thriving, like, how you hear about people who have cancer and it was not curable, and there's all these studies that says mindset plays such a big part in physically curing our body? Does thriving kind of override some of the other ones, or compensate?
So you have to have a basic level of health in the other areas to be able to get to thriving, right?
Yeah,
because everything gets you down. But you're right. I mean, it's about mind over matter. It's about the way you think of things. So I've seen I work with a lot of people who have sort of, serious medical conditions, right? But the fact of the matter is that there is an acceptance there, and acceptance is very high in the thriving state. So, you come to a realization to say that, this life matters, however short or long it is. That's immaterial to my days here on this earth. So it's a very philosophical way of looking at life. But thriving state is that it's not about doing; it's about a state of being, more than doing. Mm-hmm. Does anyone have any questions about this?
If you're shy and you want to ask, you can put it in chat.
Correct, and I can take them at the end of the talk. So should we move on to the next part of it? I know that this is content heavy, Sal. This is content heavy. But unfortunately, there's no other way of doing it.
There's so many nuggets in it, right? Like I do have to tell you, you completely shifted my mind now about work and life balance. Now it's work life and health. So I love that. Keep going.
Okay, so can we move to the next slide? Now, here I want to talk about, tell you about a 360 view of health. This is how I would see it, and this is how I urge the people that I work to see it. So the BB there, of course, is my balance bandwagon, and this is my balance bandwagon framework. But it's basically a one-stop way of sort of telling you what are the various aspects of health you need to focus on. So my wheel on the balance bandwagon consists of nourishment, movement, relaxation, and mindfulness. But you see, it's further subdivided, and I'm going to go through each of these, because the idea here is is basically to leave you with the thought that there are so many possibilities in the area of health. It's not just about that, how many steps am I doing and am I eating a salad, right? So one of the things that I want to talk about is that, though there's no universal benchmark on a health or a Thrive scorecard today. This is something that my framework, but it's also something that maybe it's better that we don't have a universal benchmark, because I think there are issues of, confidentiality and privacy. There are issues of standardization. And I think what makes a health scorecard work is the degree to which you personalize it to your life your preferences, because that's when health works, right? It's only sustainable for us if it holds value and meaning to us as people. So I actually urge people to be able to, spend time, like you chart out your career, you chart out your health journey, and your career is part of it. It has to be part of it. It cannot stay away. And therefore, you're able to look at health, life, and career all together, one lens, rather than sort of shifting lenses. And because what that does is work takes priority, because work has deadlines. This has no deadline. Also, the fact that, work has something for us to prove on a day-to-day basis. We're all people who are blessed with health. So I think it's understandable that a lot of us take health as an entitlement. But I think we've got to shift that to a thrive state where we look at health as a privilege, right? Because there are people in the world who don't have this. So all these areas, as I said, these are sort of, this can be as elaborate as you want and as simple as you want. We've all chosen simple because of various reasons, and that's another discussion. So let's chat about what an elaborate scorecard would look like. Can we move to the next slide? So if I look at this slide, this is about sort of, I've just taken the arm of nourishment that I spoke about, and I have sort of tried to divide it into different areas to show you that, physical health is where we've traditionally put our energy, right? It's about, calories burned, macronutrients, micronutrients. We hear a lot about this. These are the biomarkers of blood pressure and BMI and all that. But I think we have to move beyond that. And I think for me, the non-physical is actually the enriching portion. It's about the learnings in life. It's about, new ideas you're exposed to. It's about what you're consuming in terms of content. It's about, your ways to self-improve, to be able to increase retention, things like speed reading. It's about new idea exposure, wonderful conversations like this, which are engaging conversations. It's about new places you visited in life. It's about life practices that you've incorporated, which help you cope with life on a day-to-day basis. Each one of these is a topic by itself, but there's EFT tapping, there's fasting, there's breath work, there's meditation, there's cold therapy. But what is it that you are learning? And that's why self-improvement becomes important. And it's something that we have to measure for ourselves on a weekly, monthly basis. Any questions here?
No.
Okay. Okay.
But you're
so
right.
That's how broad.
Go ahead.
To be, because everything nourishes our soul. For me, I have also put career or work here, because to me that adds, I know it's different for a lot of people, but I think it nourishes my soul. So I like it here, right? It's for me, a lot of my work, and as Rhonda as well said, it's my purpose. It's what makes me get up in the morning, right? It's what gives my day direction every day. So I think that career can be nourishing. And I think when you're in the thrive state, more likely that you're engaged in work that you think is actually nourishing your career. When you're at a lower level, maybe you're looking at it more as a means of putting bread on the table. And that's fine, but you will move. At least, after hearing me, hopefully you will realize that there is a higher state than just doing that. Because, we can change you can eat caviar and you can eat simple bread and butter. But the fact of the matter is, this is one life, and we have to enrich it in all aspects. And we have to continually think about it. And unless we are intentional about it, we are going to go through this life without actually sucking out every bit of pleasure and every bit of opportunity that it has to offer. Moving on to the next slide. The next slide is talks about this, the same thing. It's about movement, but I want people to look at movement more than just physical activity. It's not about how much you run that day. That's what we do, and you can read up there, because I think in interest of time, I've got a lot of little stuff to consider. But I think strength and endurance and flexibility and mobility, these are the important ones, because especially for people as we age, our range of motion as far as our shoulder goes, or as far as our hip or a femur goes, that's more important than running mindlessly for X amount of time. So we have to be able to move from pure cardio work to a lot of resistance work, muscle building work. But those are the important ones that come to mind. Next slide. So coming down to relaxation now, even in terms of relaxation, a lot of people I work with, they look at relaxing as, and unfortunately, looking at your mobile or TV watching has become relaxation. But I think relaxation, we've got to sort of expand our horizon on that. A lot of people look at sleep as a relaxation, but we've got to look at stress management. And the point I want to make here is that managing stress or relaxing has to be done on a day-to-day basis. It's as important as what you're eating every day, how you're moving every day. Because if you relax when you're stressed, I think the boat a little bit. It's like hydrating yourself when you're already dehydrated. I think it has to be done preemptively on a daily basis. At least try, put it on your calendar. Maybe some days you'll slip up on it. But I think that's important. Daily stress management rather than managing it only when you're stressed out becomes an important. So you've got to sort of, whether it's sleep or stress management, it's about being intentional about these things, about prioritizing it constantly, consistency to be able to make sure that you're reaping the benefit, deepening your practice as you go along, holding a routine sacrosanct, especially in the area of sleep. You have to be able to put some boundaries around sleep. When you're younger, you can work with saying, when I'm sleepy, I'll sleep. But as you get older, we've all realized that, and I see that as I age, that I think there's I hold it very dear to me, because I know that if I don't get to bed on time, if, I don't meet the hours of, say, 10 to 5, it sort of hampers my performance and my ability to perform to my best the next day. So it's about developing coping mechanisms also, because there are times that you're not able to sleep. But what are those coping mechanisms that you are developing in times when sleep doesn't come, right? Because, it's like when you were young, your mom taught you to count sheep. But there are other additional coping mechanisms that can be put in place. So if you look at the social connections, it's not just about, getting out for drinks with your friends, but it's about the diverse groups you have in terms of your social connections. It's about that quality of that engagement there. It's about diversity of people in your little coterie of people that you have, making new connections. So expanding the idea of relaxation to be able to take, because all these things relax us. Spending time with friends, friendship, laughter, all important. Any questions for anyone here? Or can we move on?
You can move on, and just so that you
okay.
So that you have a gauge on time, in about 5 minutes, we need you to wrap up. We will ask everyone for if they have any questions, because we have the next event starting. But I do want to say, Rittu, and I want to let everyone know, Tanya is on. Tanya and Maxine are co-hosting the next event, guys, and there's a little bit of admin in between. But Rittu, you absolutely planted a seed in my head. I'm going to be quoting you now. All of my stuff. I've been really enjoying this. So let's let you get to your wrap up, and I will see everybody back, just so that you know, in about half an hour to 45 minutes, but I'm leaving you in good hands. Tanya, are you here? Tanya? Yes? I think she might be on mute. Tanya might be here, guys. But Rittu, let's have you wrap up. Okay?
Hi, I'm here. Sorry, I couldn't unmute myself. So yes, I'm here.
All right, Rittu, rock and roll. You keep going. Let's go. Rittu, are you here?
Rittu, you're on mute.
Rittu?
Oh, she's joining. She's joining as panelist.
Oh, okay.
Can anyone hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now. There you go.
Oh, good. So can I have the next slide, please? The next one is on mindfulness. And I think I've given you an idea of sort of how broad the area is. And in each of these areas of health, develop an expansive view of health. That's why I started with that, to be able to figure out for yourself, because that helps in building a scorecard. So it's about mental health, it's about habit formation, it's about longevity, because that's a new area we're looking at, which is about not only expanding our span of life, but also the quality of life that we're having. And it's an important discussion. Each of these areas is a discussion by itself. So moving on, let me just take you through through what a scorecard would look like. Can I have the next slide, please? So this is what a scorecard would look like. If you had to decide a scorecard for yourself, your own scorecard would reflect your health goals, what's interesting to you, what's meaning to you, what holds value to you. It's not about what he said or what my doctor said or she said. It's what about I believe. I believe is your driving force to be able to make this scorecard for yourself, because unless you believe in the value it adds to yourself, you're not going to put it there. So start small, be really consistent, and review this frequently, because this is not set in stone. It's not cast in stone. You can change it and make changes in it as frequently as you want, so that it caters to your life. It caters to your workload. It caters to, what else is happening, whether you're a young parent. So each of these, and anyone who wants, let me know, get in touch with me. I can share this material, because a lot of it, maybe you need time to sort of look at and, mull over to be able to figure out how to apply it for yourself. So this is just a sample personal health scorecard. Can I move on to the next one? So for each of these areas, I've taken one goal. No, so the one behind that, sorry. Yeah, so this is what it looks like. This is how you would put it together. Okay, now the next one. So here I'm going to talk a little bit about, what is it that holds us back from thriving? And I think we're all sort of aware of the fact that because I said earlier that it's about execution, our inability to execute this on a daily, into our life, not on a daily basis. It doesn't have to be on a daily basis. Some things are and some things are not. But I think it's our ability to do what we set out to do. It's about, learning to not solely rely on motivation. It's about consciously choosing what you want to focus on, because there is meaning attached to it. And I think the most important thing is recognizing how you yourself can set yourself for failure. So how is it that you are going to jeopardize what you want to do, and being aware of it? It's about the growth mindset that I already spoke about, and I don't want to talk about it anymore. If I had time, I could speak about it for hours, but it's about having a growth mindset and developing that, because a growth mindset encourages you to, focus on the process, on learning rather than the outcomes. And the last one is really important, which is about what I call psychological mindedness, which is, it's not about what happens to you, but what you do with what happens to you. I'm sure we all have genuine stories of, what has happened to us, about the trauma, the stresses of life, inability to make time. But I think the question you have to ask yourself is this enabling for me on a health journey? Because I think that's what matters. If you can answer that and say it is enabling, then sure, you don't need to change. But if in any way, shape or form, you sort of think that, it is not enabling for you, then it's time to change. So to sum up, that's my last bit that I want to say to you guys today, that I think thriving, as I said, is a state of mind. And when you are in a state where you're able to look at things like sleep and sunlight and exercise and love and laughter and listening and food and fasting and friendships and positivity and acceptance and awareness and nature and gratitude and water, when you're able to look at all this as medicine for your health, that's the time you're in that phase where you're thriving and flourishing. And that's the time that you want to spend most of your life in. That brings me to the end. And I welcome any questions that anyone has. We can go through that now.
Thank you so much, Rita. We really, really enjoyed your talk. Anybody, if you guys have any questions, Kate, our admin, will be sharing a slide with us shortly, and she will be telling us about a few lessons that we can do pertaining to this event that we just had.
I've got a quick question, actually. Hi, it's Maxine. With the school,
hi, Maxine.
Thank you. It's an amazing presentation. Where do you start? Because you've got the 6 different elements, like the emotional, physical. I mean, it's difficult to kind of think and tackle all at once. So what do you recommend as a starting point for someone who has to go on that journey for health?
Because of the fact that I always urge people to look at health holistically, in each of these areas, I would take one area as your goal or an area that you want to work in, because that makes sure that, because they are interconnected, you cannot just look at movement as an area, because you also have to look at nourishment, right? You also got to look at recovery if you're sort of exercising really hard. So to me, any area that you take, make sure you're picking up one out of each of these bandwagon deals. And that one area, it's not too much. It becomes too much when you're putting in sort of 12 things that you're working at. And you have a time limit, give yourself a time limit of 3 months, but review it every week, every day in the morning, review as to how you did the night before. And catch on to that vision of who you want to be in your health. What will you see yourself do? What will you see yourself thinking about? How do you think life is going to change to you? And feed that vision every day. If you put our energy into that, my mom used to always say, whatever you put your energy into comes true, right? So therefore, once you're able to do that, but start small. I'm there with you saying that I think if you look at this whole thing, I think it can be overwhelming, right? Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you.